A new SMRT campaign thinks public transport commuters need to be told not to clip their nails or put on makeup on the train. And now the internet has thoughts. Hi guys, I'm Natasha and welcome to another episode of The Usual Place. So after decades of courtesy campaigns across Singapore, why are we still having this conversation? Also, if we're a first world city, why do we always need to be told what to do? Now, to help me work through these issues, I have Elysia Tan, a clinical psychologist who has worked in the government, social service, and public health setting. And next to you on the couch, I have Shila Naidu, a trauma therapist who helps her clients navigate their mental health issues. I have a lot of trauma taking public transport, so I'm sure you guys are here to help us. But actually, I have to say, I don't mind people putting makeup on when they're on the train. Like, if you can do it, excellent skills, because you need to balance and make sure you draw a line correctly. And in fact, last thing on the bus, I actually saw a woman taking out her contact lens without the mirror, so she just went zoop, and I was like, hello, what's happening? But nail cutting or even nose picking on the train, why do people think that is okay? Maybe Elysia, we'll start with you.
Right. Thanks so much for having us here.
Oh, welcome.
I think that there are several things we can think of. I do think one of the things that we could consider really perhaps is the context of post-pandemic. So I think the thing about the pandemic really, right, is that the public and the private space has been blurred with time. With working from home, with having a lot of things done at home, actually a lot of the times we have brought the private space into the public. And because of that, I think the lines have been a bit blurred between what is private and what is public. And I wonder whether that plays a part in how then people perhaps also are a bit blurred on what is acceptable or not acceptable within the public space. And like what you mentioned just now, actually when it comes to personal grooming, it really is quite a grey line, right? There are certain things that we're like, okay, maybe it's acceptable, but there are certain things where I think all of us are like, okay, this is really a bit not hygienic, and that we draw a line there. And I guess that is also something that we also need to kind of redefine as a society as a whole, what is okay or not okay within the public space.
I can tell you the nail clipping. So you hear the nail clipping before you see the nail fly, right? So it's like, oh my God, this is triggering. Like, who is doing it, right? But Sheila, what do you think about, the grooming part of this whole campaign?
Yeah, I thought the campaign images were quite interesting because you have the nail clipping juxtaposed with makeup, right? And there are two very different things, right? One is hygiene. The other one is maybe just, making yourself look pretty, and you, at the most, you might stab someone with your makeup brush or get a bit of powder on somebody. But the hygiene one, I think that's a little bit more irksome. And I was wondering why it was not nail cutting and nose picking, right? And why it was makeup instead.
Maybe they had one complaint, and then SMRT was like, nope, nobody's gonna do it on the train anymore. Like someone got eyeliner on their shirt or whatever, and then they're like, nope.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. But I kind of agree with what Elysia said. Right? There is this, I guess, almost like a moral disengagement of sorts, where it's like, because it's not breaking any rule or law, and I'm not harming someone else, I'm not doing something to someone else, I'm not invading their personal space, so it's okay. It's just me. It's like everybody else, mind your own business. I'm just doing my own thing, right? And so then it's like, I'm not harming you, so it's fine, I can do this.
But what does it say about us in Singapore if we have to be told, through etiquette campaigns, how to behave in public? And do these campaigns even work if we have to constantly be told, that we have to do this way? What do you think, Sheila?
I think this is an interesting question, because when you think of how our society, the makeup of our society, right? It's constantly changing and evolving. We have a lot of people who are residents, who are not citizens. We have migrants. We have, and after COVID, so much flux as well. So we're really not a hegemonic kind of society, the way maybe Japan or Taiwan might be, or even maybe Thailand closer to home might be. So I think we don't really have a shared set of values or social norms that everyone thinks is acceptable. So we have been having these campaigns since the 70s, I think. And I think we need it continually because it's just different sets of people being educated on what is the norm in Singapore. And I don't know if citizens have internalized it by now, or if we are just kind of following it because it's there, but we're just kind of being compliant without internalizing.
So I have a question about this thing about norms, right? Does it differ from person to person? Does it also be like, okay, if my mom told me like I shouldn't do this, so of course then that doesn't create a level playing field of hygiene rules for everybody, right? Yeah, because I mean, Elysia, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think social norms, as the name suggests, really is formed through the society, really, right? And Sheila made a good point about how there's a different mix of people. But I also think, on the other hand, also there's also a difference in social norm across time. Like, what are the things that we need to look out for within the public space changes with, say, technology? Like, we didn't use to have phones in the past, so we don't have to think about noise in a public space. So I do think that this is a conversation that has to be discussed, because social norms essentially are like habits that they are formed for a group, and that depends on what the group thinks is acceptable or not. And so I think these conversations definitely need to happen, not only just from a top-down kind of, let's just have the signs out there, but really I think conversations with the people on what kind of society and what kind of behaviours we find acceptable or not acceptable.
Can they change over time? Like, so what was relevant in the 80s and maybe in 2000? I just forgot which year we're in, 2026. Yeah, do you think that it can change over time?
I think definitely social norms in itself does change with time, right? And with different countries also, you have different types of norms also really. So this is something that I think is always evolving, and that's why what Sheila mentioned, it really is important that we continue to really advocate for what are the social norms that is acceptable within our current times. And as time moves forward, there will be other social norms that will come out that we also want to advocate for.
So, Sheila, you mentioned that we have been doing this for decades, and actually we've had courtesy campaigns on MRT since the early 90s, and that's almost as old as the MRT system itself, right? So when I was looking into this episode, I came across a speech from a politician in 1991 and he was talking about how people at that time didn't give up their seats to the elderly or pregnant women or people who pretend to sleep or rush into the train. These things are still happening now. And now we have more a list of offenses to deal with, right? What is it about us? Like, do we lack social graces? Like, what does it say about us as a society? You know, Sheila, you're nodding.
Yeah, what I think is really important or interesting really is I think we will follow rules. But if the rule isn't explicitly stated, I think we are just going to, what I see notice about Singaporeans is we're going to find a way to like skirt it or not have to follow exactly. Like there's a gray area where we can sort of, can I bend this rule or can I not follow just because nothing bad is going to happen to me? I feel like we're just a society where we are really, really competitive and we always have to be on and always have to do things a certain way. So when there are these spaces to just be not quite right, we just take the opportunity, I think. Yeah. So the seat giving up thing is a great example of this, right? Where people don't want to sit on the reserved seats because then I must give up the seat. But all the other seats, it's like the same rule applies, but you know, we feel more comfortable to sit on one of the middle seats and not give it up. Yeah, just because it's not explicitly stated.
Yeah. Well, I quickly just want to mention, sorry, I made a mistake with what the politician was talking about in 1996. So that's still about like 30 years ago. Is my math correct? Yes. So, but Elysia, what does it speak, or like building on what Sheila said, you know, what does it say about us when we try to like work around the rules to see how far we can get away with things?
I think it's not only just the not having the real cost of certain behaviors, it's also, I think, the lack of social consequences also, right? I mean, on one hand, I think the thing about being in a public space is that idea of de-individuation, the idea that there's this feeling of anonymity, the idea that, you know, as a very non-confrontational society, people wouldn't really go up to you in that moment and confront you. And so the immediate consequence of certain behaviors are just not reinforced in that moment. And I think that becomes something that people then don't think so much, because I mean, I don't have any consequence of doing what I'm doing right now, be it real cause or be it the social consequence of it. And I think that definitely plays an impact, really. Yeah.
So I think people will agree with me when I say there's a list of antisocial behaviors that we need to stop on our trains and buses. And the thing you mentioned about confrontational, being non-confrontational, I'll get back to it in a bit. But I want to tell you that my biggest pet peeve is when people listen to videos or talk on the phone without using their headphones or earphones. And why, I'm kind of curious why people are unaware that their behavior is annoying. Like, it's just annoying, and I'm like, you're not the first person to do it. Do you all get as irritated as I do?
Definitely
Okay.
a pet peeve.
Yes, a lot of like massive head nodding.
Yes.
Yes. But why do people just not realize that they are irritating someone else?
I think perhaps some of it is that people are doing it, and as more people are doing it, you kind of almost feel like, oh, actually this is quite okay and quite normal because everyone else is doing the exposure to that, right?
And is it because no one tells them to stop, which goes back to a non-confrontational
And that's
thing,
also
right?
a part of it. And I think the thing also is that it's not that there aren't people who have tried to tell people to stop too. It's a mix of that. Firstly, I think as a society, there's that non-confrontational stance to begin with. And for the people that do tell, sometimes it's also, how do I even enforce this? If someone just goes, okay, this is my own private space and my own private, behavior, you can't say anything about it. There's actually nothing that allows the public to really go, no, you can't do this. And to some extent, I think some of this science actually empowers the public to be able to then go, but look, this is not something that's acceptable. Yeah.
Sheila?
Yeah, I actually I totally agree with this. If you were to confront someone and be like, "Can you stop doing this?" they can very easily just say, "But why?"
Yeah,
like
don't be
no
kaypoh.
one, no one said,
Yeah.
I cannot,
Yeah.
and now we can point to the sign and be like, "No, you really cannot."
Yeah, but then
which might be helpful.
to talk about, to build on this non-confrontational issue, this is why people don't confront other people, which is what you said, because then you're gonna like get back talk, and then after that then it escalates. So my personal experience with this is I often debate with myself, like, do I tell this person to stop doing what they're doing because it's irritating me? But then I don't want to get into an argument because you don't know how the other person's going to react, right? And more often than not, going by the videos that we've seen, people react badly when they're told not to do something that is irritating. And then after that, other people start videoing it. And then the next thing you know, you're on social media and you're like, wait, I didn't sign up for this. So then you keep quiet and then you don't say anything, right? And then you just suffer through this ride. But why are we not more confrontational about things that are making us annoyed on the buses or trains?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think I'm just picking my battles. Like, do I have the bandwidth to deal with this, and do I want to at this point in time? Sometimes I would just, I would think I must be honest, I haven't encountered too many of these on the lines that I take frequently, but I can imagine leaving the cabin and walking away if I feel uncomfortable with something.
But in rush hour, you can't.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
I've had a woman like stand right next to me on a very crowded train in the morning, and her phone is like going off, and all I can do is like death stare her. But she didn't get it though, so I was just
Right.
like, okay, I only have 2 stops, so that's great. But for people who have a really long ride, like they have
Yeah.
to, tahan all the way.
Yes.
But so I don't. So someone else did mention like you should change train or whatever. But then how do you actually deal with it if you can't move into another cabin, right? Like, so, Elysia, are you like supportive of like let's confront the person?
I think that when we think about confrontation, it doesn't always have to be something that's very like firm or very punitive, right? Sometimes it's also about being able to take a gentle approach, but be able to still be direct about what we want to say. I do think that that's helpful to have, but I also, like what I mentioned previously, I do think that having the infrastructure in place, right? So having some of these things that can support us to say like, okay, I am in the right to tell you this, will also empower people to be able to try and do some of these things. And perhaps at the start, it's a very deliberate way of trying to kind of encourage better behaviors. But I think over time also then it becomes a habit that's formed both by the public in terms of being able to confront if needed, as well as by the people in terms of the behaviors in the public setting.
I mean, I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. I mean, is this all a reflection of who we are as a society? Like the anger that's bubbling or the tension that's bubbling on a train, like does it reflect that we're a society that's kind of like stressed out and in such a rush, and that when it comes to specific grooming things, I want to go back to that, is like, do we have to clip our nails on the train? Do we have to like do our makeup on the train? Do we have to like listen to stuff on the train without our headphones? Like what do all these behaviors reflect about us as a society? Maybe Sheila, you can share your thoughts.
I think I have I have some mixed, like there's a part of me that wants to maybe extend a little bit of empathy, like why could this be? But I also want to say that I'm not like trying to condone it, right? I'm just thinking maybe, if you are, if the time on the train is the only time you have where you are not like looking after somebody or someone like, there's a child who doesn't need you, maybe you're a caregiver, and like that 30 minutes is the only like alone time that you have to do something, you may then want to just use that time to put on your makeup or,
Clip your
watch.
nails.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to see if there could be a reason, right, for this. But when it comes to things of like hygiene, maybe clipping nails or watching something loudly, I think it could really just be how we are conditioned to really think of ourselves and put ourselves like first almost in this society where, like I mentioned, we are so competitive. There's always this sense of how do I get ahead of the other person, and that kind of creates quite an individualistic mindset where we become less considerate of others, or we spend less time considering the needs and comfort of other people around us. So we really believe that as long as I'm not really bothering you, then it's fine to do this.
Yeah, because technically when you're cutting your nails, you don't hurt anyone per se, right?
Yeah. So then it's easy to say things like, it's the cleaner's job to clean the floor, or it's, I'm not harming anybody, or everyone should be minding their own business. This is my personal thing. And we rationalize that way instead of thinking like collectively what will be better for everybody, right? So there's that sense of maybe not thinking enough about the collective.
Elysia, do you have like a...
Actually, I really wanted to focus back on what you said at the start about having more empathy and compassion for people. So I think we are, as a whole, a very stressed out society, really. And I think with that also then to have that cognitive space to then think not only just of what I need to do, the people I need to take care of, but also then about the public space also becomes a lot in the moment. And I do think that makes it very hard sometimes when you're rushing, you've just maybe put down your kid and childcare and you're rushing to work. Maybe perhaps you just don't have the space to think so much about some of these things. I think also on the other side of things, like what you've mentioned, we really pride ourselves as being a very efficient society. We're very fast-paced. We love to multitask. We think we can do a lot of things in one go. And perhaps, as objectionable as it is about cutting nails, perhaps a part of some people may just be like, oh, maybe this is my cheat code to really be even more efficient in that moment. And just in that moment, you kind of forget that there are other things to consider.
Like other people. Yes. But so this whole thing makes me think about how we're such a stickler for rules. Like, are we such a law-by-law society that if we don't have instructions on how to behave, then we don't know how to judge whether something is appropriate or not? So with the SMRT campaign, there's even a dotty. That's the little bubbles that they have to tell people not to record or photograph people without consent. And to me, that's like, what? You need a sticker to tell you this? But yeah, what are your thoughts about, how we process everything by rules? So if it's not said, then we try to like work around the boundaries and see what we can get away with, right? Yeah. What does it say about us? Yeah. Sheila?
I think it says that we are compliant, but we haven't quite developed that muscle of maybe conscientiousness. Yeah. So we will do it if we are told to do it, but we may not. Cause I think Singapore in general, right? We're not the most reflective society, but we are unfortunately quite a shame-based society. So this is the trauma-informed part coming in, right? Where if you know that something is going to cause you shame or guilt or have people look at you a certain way, and you know that if I do this, I'm falling outside of the norms, okay, I won't do it. But then if it requires a little bit of reflection to be like, what helps me become a better citizen or a better, commuter, or makes life easier for the people around me, that takes reflection and slowing down. And maybe we're just not so
there yet. We're not there yet.
We're not adept to doing that quite yet.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, a shame-based society. Is that the word that you use?
Yeah.
Shame-based society, which is a really interesting concept to me. So it's like, why are we like that? Like, where did this come from? Like, is it because we've just had this many campaigns and we have campaigns for everything? It was very funny. I actually saw a document about what you should do in your HDB, like no jumping on the floor like at certain times or whatever, because your downstairs neighbor might hear you or whatever. But it's like that you have to be told. It's just, I mean, Elysia, I want to get your thoughts on where we are at as a society.
Well, I mean, I think this kind of goes a little bit back to building social norms, right? I mean, in that era, we talk about not jumping on the floors on HDB, most probably because before that, they weren't high-rise buildings and it wasn't something people even thought about, was aware about. But what I think, though, is that perhaps this kind of almost having to prescribe to people what to do is the start of building that intrinsic motivation, because a lot of behavior theories always talk about how we start with the extrinsic motivation, right? So the rewards, the punishment, to be able to kind of increase certain behaviors we want to increase. But the thing is that over time, this becomes habits, and at some point in time, it becomes something that's a lot more intrinsic. So, I mean, an example I can think of is, say, for example, I know we have all this like no littering signs everywhere in all the public transports, but actually I don't think we really know how much we are fined for it actually, right? And that's the thing, because now it's no longer a matter of, because I know I'll be fined, so I do not litter. It's more of because it has become such an ingrained habit within us that we don't do it anymore. And I think that's very similar to a lot of these campaigns, that what we are trying to do is moving from that very extrinsic, something externally kind of motivating you to stop, to something more intrinsic and more habitual for yourself. Yeah.
So in 2069, we will stop having people blaring their speakers, blaring music from the speakers. Oh my gosh, will I be here?
Hopefully,
it will not be in my
technology may be different.
Yes. The moment you turn it on, then it like automatically like plugs into your earphones. All right. Well, I want to ask about difficult encounters on train. I mean, we spoke about it earlier, but I do note that not every encounter with people might be just because they are ignorant or they're just unaware. Sometimes we are dealing with people who are maybe perhaps having mental health issues or very, very stressed out that, they kind of like act out on trains and buses. And how do we navigate that? How do we respond when we meet an individual like that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking that question. I think that's also a very important part for us to consider. I think it's not uncommon. It's also, I frequently also for myself have had encounters where, you see someone that's sitting in the train and the two seats beside them are empty, and perhaps they're talking to themselves, perhaps they're a bit louder, perhaps they feel a bit like, something's a bit wrong, but you don't really know what the issue is. And I think a lot of the times you find that people are very uncomfortable. It may not be that they do not accept this person as part of society, but it's just more of they don't know how to react or how to manage this, or whether, does this person need help? So I think a lot of the times perhaps is a matter of just taking some time to be able to observe, to be able to just, give the person space to do whatever they want to do. Because most of the time, some of these things are just a part of perhaps their presentation because of certain mental health issues. I think sometimes also it can also be helpful if you feel that they need help to really just check in, like, how are you? Do you need help? And some simple questions like this sometimes can help also.
Sheila?
Yeah, I think certain forms of intellectual disabilities or neurodivergence can, depending on where someone is on the spectrum, right, they might present with certain tics or certain kinds of stimming, and it may look unnatural or it may look scary to someone who really has no idea what is going on. But a lot of times these individuals are not they're not actually trying to interact with anyone or harm anyone. So I would say just, treat them as you would any other commuter. Just with respect and dignity. And I don't think they're out to do anything to anybody. And they're not on purpose trying to make anyone uncomfortable as well.
But if there is someone really unaware, just because they are like, you know what, my space, my time, I'm going to do whatever I want. So is the answer when we encounter such people to help them build more, like in building social graces, is the answer to just find ways to be more comfortable with being direct about what we want? I mean, I wouldn't say confrontational, but when we meet someone who's doing something that we don't like in a public space, how do we, get them to see our point of view?
Yeah, I like what Elysia said about being direct, kind and direct, right? In a courteous way. I'm someone who's like quite non-confrontational, but I notice if someone cuts queue in front of me, I will tell them to move to the back, right? I feel like I have a right because I've earned my
hey,
place
that's
in the
a queue.
Yeah, I'll be like, auntie or uncle, or like you have to join the queue behind. So maybe even for me, like just developing that muscle to be direct, even if it's maybe something that they're doing in general and not to me, and feeling confident and comfortable enough to kindly point it out to them. Yeah. But I feel like in a public space, like you said, because sometimes things escalate and there are a lot of video phones around, I may not try more than once.
You should test water and see how it goes, and then next time you can tell someone else again and practice and practice and practice.
I know.
Yes, but Elysia, what do you think?
I think definitely that kind of direct approach is definitely helpful. And I think going back to the topic about kind of balancing between when there's someone that perhaps is less aware versus someone that has a mental health issue, also maybe also being open to what the reaction may be, and instead of jumping to the person just doesn't want to do it, maybe just being a bit more curious about where the behavior is coming from. So yeah.
Hey, well, I want to run out with two random questions. Firstly, what is the craziest thing you've seen on public transport, and what did you do? Sheila, I'll let you have the first go.
So I wouldn't classify this as crazy, but it was probably one of the first times I have seen something like this on the train. So this was like in my partying days, and I was taking the first train back home. I think the 6 a.m. train, and at that time I was living in Pasir Ris, so the train was coming in. It was the last station, and there was this guy opposite me on the other end of the seat. It was a very empty train, and I think he was really drunk, and he just threw up all over himself on the floor. And
Did you help him?
no, not at all.
You're like, bye, I'm out of here. Next train.
I'm like, thank God the doors are open. I'm running out. But I think there was a staff member who saw and then, called reinforcements. Yeah, it was it was dreadful.
Still seared in your brain because you remember this like years later.
Yes, I still remember the shirt he was wearing.
Well, he's probably thrown it out by now,
Yeah.
hopefully. Yes.
This was
Elysia,
years ago, years ago.
Yeah, Elysia, what's your story?
I think maybe less of a crazy encounter, but actually maybe I wanted to just share an encounter of a helpful public person, really. And also quite a number of years ago, my sister had quite a bad asthmatic attack, and then she was kind of crouching in a corner and kind of panicking. And just, having a random uncle being able to come there and be like, okay, do you need a seat? Can we get you some help? Things like this. And I wonder whether that is also, but maybe there's also a way of modeling really how we can also really help for some individuals. Just being able to go there, ask if you need help, and do your best to do whatever you can. Yeah.
So my other random question is, if you could have a rule on the MRT or bus and train, what would it be? And I can tell you mine. I would say no PDA on the bus or train, because if you're in front of me and you're PDAing, and then I'm like, where do I look? If I look at you, I'm a pervert or a prude. Either way, then I'm just like, what's happening? So I think we should have no PDA on the buses and trains to make it easier for me to just look normally. But yes, if you had to pick one rule, what would it be?
I would like to have a bit more physical distance between people, especially during the peak hours. The being packed like a sardine is really something that I don't like.
Okay, 1 meter for Elysia.
Maybe not so realistic. At least 15 cm.
Okay, fair point. Sheila, what about you?
I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on the no speaking thing. I just think that's the grossest thing, and my mind I just like go down into this spiral, right? Because they pick their nose and then they touch this handle and then they held that grab bar. And I just ruminate on that, and then I'm really good at balancing on the train without touching anything.
Your core must be really strong.
I hope so. Yeah.
Because some of those trains are jerky and you like have to hold on.
And like, I don't want to touch anything. I'm a bit of a germaphobe, so I would really like that rule. Yeah. Okay. Or we all like sanitize our hands before going.
I think they should have the bottles in the train, right? They can like just press it on the way out.
Yes, that would be excellent.
So if SMRT is listening, and they do it, then you'll know it came from TUP.
That's wonderful.
All right. So thank you very much for being here. And that's it from the usual place today. Now, if you're watching us on your public transport, right, I hope you have your headphones on. And if there's someone clipping their nails, please share this episode with them. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss new episodes of the podcast. Now, if you have thoughts on what we just discussed, do drop a comment on YouTube or talk to me on Instagram at The Usual Place Podcast. I'll see you next Thursday.